All right, I guess we'll get started. Aloha and welcome to iTeach808, Empowering Hawaii's Teachers in Technology Conference, sponsored by the Augustine Educational Foundation and Sacred Hearts Academy, Honolulu. My name is Dan Renan, and I'll be co-facilitating this session with Derek Lee. We're so honored to have Dr. Kara Hisatake join us today and share her expertise through a 45-minute presentation named Virtual Round Robins with Google Slides. Please be aware that we'll be recording this session. If you don't like being recorded, you may consider turning off your camera during the session or reviewing the recording afterwards. The recording will be made available on YouTube and shared on iTeachers808 website a week after this event. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Kara Hisatake.
Thanks, Dan. So I'm just gonna jump right in. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to wait until the end, or you can put it in chat. I'll have it open. But today we're going to talk about virtual round robins using Google Slides. So this, I hope, will be a very easy way to really collaborate with students, especially virtually. But I've been really liking this tool, so I'm hoping to use it even after the pandemic is over. So just like quickly about me, my name is Kara Hisatake. Feel free to call me Kara. I teach English from 10th to 12th grade at Sacred Hearts. And this is just background about my education, but the goals for this session really understand what round robins are. And I didn't really use them until I went to college, but they're a really useful tool. Brainstorm different kinds of uses, and then hopefully practice something, maybe take home an example. We'll see how it works. I just wanted to check in with everyone who is here and see if you, what your familiarity is with using slides and using round robins. So I'm gonna do this quick poll. It's just asking you those couple of questions. Totally up to you if you want to answer, but it'll help me get a sense of where we're all at and if I like where I should aim my presentation. But yeah, you should see it pop up on your screen as a Zoom poll. Okay, so it seems I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So it seems that it's kind of varied, our familiarity with Google Slides. So I'll try to break it down a little more if you're not that familiar with it. And most people aren't really familiar with round robins. That's totally fine. I didn't, again, as I said, I didn't begin using it regularly until college, but I kind of wish I did it earlier. That's great. It's windy today, somewhat rainy. I hope everyone's having a good Saturday. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So, round robins, what are they? Basically, if we were all in a classroom together or in a room together, we would each have our own piece of paper. We would write something on that paper, and then we would pass it on to the next person. Usually we'd be in a circle. So we'd pass it on to the next person. That next person would write something, add something on to that piece of paper, and then it would keep going. So it might happen in groups, it might happen in an entire big circle, but basically round robins are a way to really put something down on a piece of paper, and then that original writer gets to pass their writing on and then have other folks comment on it, add to it, do different things to it. So in our virtual teaching mode, if you were in person, we do it in a circle with paper, but online, I found that the best way to do it is through Google Slides, um, because it's a shared document. Everyone gets their own slides, so it's really easy to figure out, this is my piece of paper, basically. Um, and I'll explain why it might be better than some other tools. But Google Slides is really easy to see, if you, especially if you put your name on it. This is my slide and not someone else's slide or document. So round robins, they're really useful for these kinds of things. So one, it's like giving and receiving criticism. Two, you could, if you build it into the way that you're using it, use it to help build analysis skills. And three, it's really, really collaborative. So even if you are virtual, if you're doing it synchronous, classroom, virtually, or even asynchronous, you can still get collaboration. Um, and I think it's easier than, if you have Google Suite, then it's easier than Jamboard and Google Docs for collaboration, just because Jamboard, it's still coming out with a lot of things. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Jamboard, but I've started to begin using it. There are some possibilities there, but I think it's still a work in progress. You can only have like 25 people on at the same time. I think you can only have a certain number of slides, and it's not as easy to maneuver between slides. So it's just not as easy as Google Slides. Google Docs, it's just harder to do in terms of switching between slides, making sure everything's separate, I think. Um, Jamboard has some possibilities, so I wouldn't rule it out, but I think Google Slides overall is easier, and it has more possibilities. So this is a really short and quick example of what a round robin might look like if you had a group of students writing a poem. So you could say, this group is writing a poem, and we're gonna go in turns writing lines. Um, so the, the original writer here, Melissa, would be first, and she would write one line, then you'd ask her to pass it on to the next person, Helen, who writes the next second line, then Joyce, Lucy, Melissa. Each person would be adding onto that poem. So by the end, you would have one entire poem that the group made collaboratively together. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of what one possibility could be for Google Slides, and doing some collaborative work. I'm going to show you some other examples. With me so far? Let me know if you have questions. Um, these are just things that I've been doing so far, but I think there's a lot more possibility. So like I've done it with having students create thesis statements, and then at the same, like after they create their thesis statements, they give feedback all on the same slide. I've had something similar to that, having them write claims or points for an essay from their outlines and then getting feedback. The example I just showed you lines up with creative writing, right? You could also do that. Um, and then it's also in, it could be a version of peer review. It's not anonymous, of course, but it is a way to have people, they would share their documents and you could have them answer questions on the slide for their peer review, or they could upload a particular sentence or paragraph to their slide and have someone else review their slide. So there's possibilities here. It's really great, I think, for activities that requires some kind of collaboration and feedback. And you could do it in groups, you could do it for the whole class. Okay, so I'm gonna show you some examples that I've actually done. So actually, let me do this. It's best to see it in this view, and you can really see what I've done. So I have a few slides from an outline workshop that I did that was a round robin with Google Slides. And I uploaded, I had all these slides, and I had a direction slide. So I asked people to find the slide with their name on it. So I would put all their names on the slides, ask them to find their particular slide, and then ask them to write their work in progress thesis statement. So you give them time to do that. And then after that is when we would do the round robin. So you can do this in a multitude of ways, but the easiest way to do it is ask them to go one slide down from their name, the slide with their name on it. And then you ask them to do whatever you want in terms of commenting on a thesis statement. So that could be, what's strong about this thesis statement? Is the thesis statement specific? Rate the thesis statement, however you want to do it. Or like add a piece of evidence from the text that you think supports the author's thesis statement. You could do any of those things. And then you could repeat it. So you ask them to go 2 slides down from where their name is. It can get confusing if you go like 5 slides down or something, or you go 1 slide up, 1 slide down from where their name is. So just keep that in mind. The easiest way is just to do like 1 and then 2 up or down. So this is what it looked like for some students. I asked them to put their thesis statement. Actually, what did I do? I asked them to write their thesis statement and their strongest reason supporting their thesis. So this is one person's thesis statement and their strongest point. The next person's thesis and strongest point. The next person only got to their thesis, I think. Again, the next person got to their thesis and their strongest point. So you get the idea. So after they've written that all out, what I asked them to do is this is the round robin part. I asked them to go to the slide below them and then like write their name, and then they're commenting something on their partner's slide. So I can't exactly remember what I did here. I think it was to see how effective the strongest point was in relating to the person's thesis statement. So I think we did this a couple of times. That's why you see several names here in the slide notes. But basically, they're looking at the author's thesis statements, seeing how strong the evidence really is, and see how well it matches. So like, someone else did it here. So they just went down. And so on. So as the instructor, you're on the slides and you're looking at them like in this view where you can see the slide notes and the slide itself. So you can see how people are commenting, what their thesis statements actually are. So as you go through, you can see if anyone needs help with their thesis statements. You yourself can comment, right? Okay, so that's the first example. The second example is this outline workshop. Oops. So I asked them, again, it's the same thing. I asked them to find the slide with their name on it and write their work in progress thesis statement and all of their main points. So 3 or 4 points that support their thesis, the topic sentences of their body paragraphs. And we were going to focus in this workshop on finding the best evidence for those points if they really had them. So like you can see here, they have their name, they have their thesis statement and their points, thesis statement, their main points, thesis statement, main points. So once they finish writing that out, and at the same time, right, as they're writing it out, I can look through everyone's thesis statements and see how I can support them. Are they doing well? Do they need to be more specific? Is it not making an argument? And so on. And then the second thing I asked them to do, this is the round robin part of it again, I asked them to copy this and answer it for the person below them. So they would put their name and then they would answer these questions. What is the position the thesis statement takes about the topic? And second, look at the first body paragraph, point, what are the best quotes in the book that you can give that would support that claim? So you can see that playing out here. They're answering the question for their partner. So the person who's at the bottom of the roster would just go to the top in terms of the slides, right? So this is someone who went to the top. Right, the person here just went down and looked at the thesis statement, finding evidence, and again. And so you can do this as many times as you want to keep passing along. Probably 1, 2, 3 times would be best, so they can get some kind of feedback from their peers. Okay, another example here is characterization exercise. This is for creative writing. And so here I asked them to find the slide with their name on it, right? And then write 2 sentences about an imagined character by showing how they react to a situation. So I gave them a first sentence of a possible story, and then they had to write about what their character would do and write at least 2 sentences. And they had other directions there, but basically they had to imagine a character that would react to this one first line. And then the line was the same for everyone. It was alarms blared, resounding throughout the hallways, like what was happening, right? So they all had different characters. And the world was ending. They all had different characters who responded differently to whatever they imagined the situation was. So after they did that, here comes the round robin part of it. I asked them to then in the slide notes, go to a partner slide, the slide below them, and comment what's one word you'd use to describe this character and why. So what kind of character is coming up here? So you can see that that's what they did. right? Okay, so I'm gonna go back to presentation mode here. Those are my main examples that I've used it in the past. This is from last semester. So the view here is very important for you as instructor. Okay, so I thought we could do a little interaction, and this is totally up to you if you want to do that. But I think it could be useful, especially if it's something that you're working on. You can see how it would apply to you right now. So I'm putting it in the chat, but it is a link to a Google Slides practice session where we would do a round robin. And you have access to this, so you can see how I've done it. But it should basically lead you here. And this is what it kind of looks like for many of the ones that I've done in actual classes. So if you'd like to do this with me, you're finding an empty slide and writing your name at the top. And then you're gonna think about what kind of round robin would you like to create? What kind of skill do you want your students to practice? What kind of collaboration are they gonna have? Really, what's the aim here? And then you're thinking like, what do you want them to leave with? What's the finished product? Are they gonna create a poem together? Are they going to do some kind of workshop or peer review? Get some feedback? And then start thinking about the structure of this. What's it gonna look like? What directions are you gonna give? What questions are you gonna ask? How are you gonna move from the skill that you want to practice to the product that you're gonna create at the end of the day? So I have an example here. Right, the purpose skill would be practicing analysis and making claims. So we would maybe do a close reading round robin practice. So that might look like providing everyone with a passage on their slide. And it might look like asking them to annotate and then making a potential claim about that annotation. And then thinking about what other people in the round robin would do, like feedback on the author's claim somehow. That's what I'm thinking about so far for this potential round robin. Okay, so I'm gonna give us a few minutes to like think about ideas. This is just a brainstorm session. Feel free to chat with me on chat if you want to, but I'm just gonna let us think about these things for a few minutes. Okay, totally okay if you're still working on it, but I'm gonna move on in about a minute. Okay, this is just brainstorm, and I just wanted to do something useful so that one, you could experience what this is like from the student end, and also so you could take home something which you could possibly use in your own classrooms. So we're gonna do the round robin part of this now. Okay, so on the direction slide, I have the round robin part of this. If you could please highlight, copy these questions onto the slide that you're gonna be looking at, that would be awesome. So you're gonna go to your slide with your name on it and then do what I've been saying this whole time. You're going one slide down, and if you're at the bottom, then go one to the top, and give your partner some feedback on their potential idea. So use these questions as a guide, but provide whatever feedback you think is going to be useful for your partner. Um, Basically, brainstorm some questions or directions, and then write something that you think's done really well and a comment on how to improve. Those are just suggestions. So as an instructor, if you see like someone who's maybe not doing the work or someone who needs feedback, then you can do this too. I'm gonna give us a couple of minutes to try this out. So again, you're going one slide down from your slide, commenting to help your partner out and how to improve this idea. Might be helpful to copy and paste those questions. Okay, I totally know some of you are still working on it, but I'm gonna switch gears in a minute. If you're looking at the presenter screen, you can see what I'm doing, which is basically just trying to monitor. And so you can monitor in terms of time too. You'll know when people are done or not. Okay, so hopefully that gave you some idea in practice what it could look like, and some ideas for possibilities where this could go. Um, I was even talking to a friend who works in like a corporate company, and she's like, "This is great too for meetings, like some kind of workshop productive meeting." But the great thing about it being digital, right, is that even if you have a lot of stuff to say, or if it goes off the slide, you can still see it too. Um, and if you use this view a lot, I think it changes so you can only see the slides themselves. This is another way to monitor as well, but I really like this view as instructor, so you can use and see the slide notes, which is the speaker notes area, this bottom area. So like I like to use different parts of the Google Slides to do different things. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap up here with a few tips. So I think it really works best. And don't forget, I think you all have these, the link. So you can go back to it. It's open to anyone with the link, and I'm just gonna leave it there. Feel free to use it. Go and see what people wrote in terms of feedback. I think it could be helpful to see what other ideas were out there. In terms of tips, I think it works best when you create slides and have student names on the slide so they know where to go and they're not confused. And it's best if you don't have like all the directions there at once. Maybe if you have a separate document with all the steps and then you upload it one at a time as you're doing the lesson. It will lessen the amount of confusion. Um, I did that sometimes, so they'll only focus on one step at a time. And then thinking about space too, what I just said, like it's not, Google Slides is not only great for presenting something, right? It's good for this other kind of collaboration. And the way you view it is important too. So as you can tell, it'll take time. It'll take time for people to write their work on it, and it'll take time for people to read other people's work and comment on it. So this could be a whole class session. It could be multiple class sessions. Just keep that in mind as you're preparing your lesson for the kinds of questions you want to ask and how much time they'll have to read everything and write something. So I think it's really the best for workshops in all kinds of ways. The troubleshooting part of it, on the other hand, this has happened to me before. Thankfully, only in the early stages. So someone's accidentally deleted a slide. And because they all have editing access, it can happen. And for some reason, you're not able to get it back, because I've tried to go back to history and get it back, but I haven't been able to do that. If you do find a way to do that, let me know. But yeah, sometimes a student will accidentally delete a slide, and then it's kind of just gone. So I've asked those people to just rewrite their thesis statements or whatever. Um, or it might be good to like make a copy of the document or something at some point. Um, and then sometimes a student doesn't participate, you'll know because you'll keep track of who's writing what. And it can create an uneven distribution or participation of like who's getting feedback. So that's like when I like to step in as an instructor and leave feedback for people that have like very few comments, or like um, someone isn't paying attention or something. So I will step in and give them comments, especially in terms of when you're doing the actual round robin section of it. But that's basically it. Please feel free to email me if you have questions or anything. Um, I think this is really quick and easy to lesson plan for, and I think it takes a lot of burden off of you as an instructor because you are monitoring, but you're not like having to super facilitate hands-on 100% of the time during that class session. Any questions that I can help you with at this point? Feel free to type it in the chat too. I'm open. That's a good question about language learning. I like the idea that you put in the slides, round robin that we just did. I haven't really used it for round robin, but I was thinking about using it for like vocabulary. Um, haven't tried it yet, but I was thinking about doing like having them create sentences maybe, and then do some kind of round robin. Maybe they could create a story. That could be something for language learning. Depends where they are at. Or they use a certain, you could ask each successive partner in the round robin to create a sentence that makes sense in the story using a certain vocab word. I don't know. Okay, we're about time, so thanks everyone for staying, being here.
All right, it's time to wrap it up. Mahalo to Dr. Kara Hisatake and for everyone's participation. We hope you find this session helpful and make sure some valuable connections. Thank you for being here today. Feel free to join us for other sessions and have a wonderful day.
Bye. Gonna stop.